Welcome and thank you for joining this journey. If you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure how to handle life's challenges, this audiobook will give you a clear path forward. Today, you will learn practical steps to solve problems, reduce stress, and make decisions with confidence. We will guide you through a series of strategies you can use every day to calm your mind, think clearly, and take action that works. Each step is designed to help you move from confusion to clarity, from reaction to thoughtful response, and from frustration to steady progress. By following these methods, you will build habits that create lasting peace, strengthen your focus, and empower you to handle any challenge life throws at you. Stick with us until the end. Absorb every step and start applying these lessons today. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next guide for a stronger, calmer mind. Number 1. Pause, breathe, observe. There is a moment before every reaction, a space so small that most people miss it. It's the thin line between chaos and clarity, between confusion and control. That moment is where peace begins. When life rushes toward you with noise, pressure, and uncertainty, the first and most powerful thing you can do is pause. The pause is not weakness. It is strength disguised as stillness. It is the silent decision to choose awareness over impulse, to choose observation over reaction. In that pause, you reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of the moment and become the author of it. When something goes wrong, when someone speaks harshly, when plans fall apart, when fear floods your mind, the natural instinct is to act fast. You want to fix it, defend yourself, or escape the discomfort. But speed rarely brings clarity. The faster the reaction, the greater the confusion. The pause interrupts that cycle. It is a deliberate slowing down of time, a conscious refusal to be dragged into emotional turbulence. It allows you to rise above the storm instead of being tossed inside it. After the pause comes the breath. The breath is your anchor. It is always there, steady and loyal, waiting to bring you home to yourself. When you breathe deeply, you send a message to your body that it is safe, that there is no immediate danger. The mind begins to calm, the heart slows down, and what felt overwhelming begins to shrink back into proportion. A single deep breath can restore a sense of balance when the world feels tilted. Breathing is not just biology, it is wisdom in motion. It connects body and mind, thought and awareness. Breathing is how you remind yourself that this moment is temporary. It is how you bridge the space between the chaos of your thoughts and the calm of your center. When you take slow, steady breaths, you invite your nervous system to reset. You move from reaction to reflection. You begin to notice not just what's happening around you, but what's happening within you. That is where observation begins. To observe is to see clearly without judgment. It is to notice the flow of thoughts, emotions, and sensations without being swept away by them. Observation is not about fixing what you see, it is about understanding it. When you observe your own thoughts, you begin to see how often they repeat, how often they exaggerate, how often they lie. The mind loves to create stories about what is happening, most of which are colored by fear, ego, or expectation. Observation breaks the illusion. It helps you separate what is real from what is imagined. When you observe instead of react, the world slows down. You notice the tone in someone's voice, the tightness in your own chest, the patterns that keep showing up in your life. You begin to recognize that problems are rarely about what is happening in the outer world. They are about how the inner world responds. Observation reveals this truth. It shows you that much of your suffering comes not from events, but from interpretations. To pause, breathe, and observe is to cultivate self-mastery. It is the foundation of all emotional intelligence, all problem-solving, all peace. Without it, the mind runs wild, the heart panics, and the body follows. But with it, even the most difficult situations become manageable. When you pause, you take control of time. When you breathe, you take control of your body. When you observe, you take control of your mind. That is the formula for peace in motion. Think about how most conflicts unfold. A person feels misunderstood, frustrated, or attacked. They respond immediately, raising their voice, defending, blaming, or withdrawing. The situation escalates. The original issue gets buried beneath layers of reaction. Now imagine the same moment, but this time with awareness. The person feels the frustration rise, but pauses before speaking. They breathe, noticing the tension in their body. They observe the emotion instead of acting on it. The pause creates a small window of clarity. In that space, words come out softer, decisions come out wiser, and understanding replaces hostility. That single pause changes everything. In daily life, the practice of pausing and observing can turn ordinary moments into moments of growth. When you are stuck in traffic, instead of cursing the delay, pause, breathe. Observe your impatience as if you are watching someone else's story unfold. Notice how your mind wants control, how it resists stillness. As you observe, the frustration loses its grip. The situation doesn't change, but you do. You become larger than the irritation. You find peace not after the problem, but within it. In conversations, the same principle applies. When someone criticizes or challenges you, instead of rushing to defend yourself, pause, breathe deeply before replying. Observe what's happening inside. Perhaps a wave of anger, a sting of insecurity, or the urge to prove yourself. Notice it all without judgment. That awareness alone weakens its power. You respond from strength, not from woundedness. Observation transforms reaction into wisdom. Even in moments of decision-making, this formula applies. When faced with a difficult choice, pause before deciding. Breathe to clear the emotional noise. Observe your thoughts as if they belong to someone else. Which ones come from fear? Which ones come from truth? Observation helps you see the difference. Clarity emerges not from rushing, but from stillness. The great Stoics understood this well. They believed that peace comes from governing the self, not from controlling the world. You cannot always control what happens, but you can always control your perception of it. The pause, the breath, and the observation are how you regain that control. They are the tools of an inner warrior, quiet, patient, unshaken. This practice is not about escaping emotion, but embracing it with awareness. When sadness appears, pause and feel it fully. When anger rises, breathe through it. When anxiety tightens your chest, observe it without labeling it as bad. The more you watch your emotions without reacting, the more you understand them. They lose their power to dictate your behavior. They become signals instead of shackles. Consistency is key. You cannot wait for calm to practice calm. You must practice it in the smallest everyday moments. Pause when the phone rings before answering. Breathe before opening a stressful email. Observe the thoughts that rush in when plans change or things don't go your way. Each small act of awareness builds mental strength. Over time, the mind learns that peace is not found outside circumstances. It is created inside consciousness. There is a quiet strength that comes from living this way. You begin to carry stillness like armor. Situations that once threw you off balance lose their power. People who try to provoke you fail to reach your core. You learn to walk through life with steady steps, unmoved by the chaos around you. This is not indifference, it is mastery. It is the calm confidence that comes from knowing you control your inner state, no matter what happens. When you make pausing, breathing, and observing a habit, you begin to notice a subtle shift. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions become more stable. You start responding to life instead of reacting to it. Problems that once felt overwhelming now appear as puzzles, waiting for understanding. You see patterns, connections, and lessons hidden inside challenges. You stop fighting every wave and start learning how to surf them. Peace is not the absence of problems. It is the presence of perspective. Every time you pause, you choose perspective over panic. Every time you breathe, you choose balance over tension. Every time you observe, you choose wisdom over confusion. These choices, repeated daily, transform your life. They turn the noise of existence into a rhythm of calm awareness. In the end, the peaceful mind formula begins right here with the simple act of pausing, breathing, and observing. It may sound small, but its power is immense. It is the foundation of clarity, emotional freedom, and inner strength. From this single practice, every other skill in problem-solving grows. When you master the pause, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, no problem can truly defeat you. Number 2. Name your storm. Every problem, no matter how complex or chaotic, begins as a feeling, a wave of emotion that rises before the mind has time to make sense of it. The confusion, the anxiety, the frustration, they all swirl together into something that feels enormous and unmanageable. But before you can find peace, before you can create a solution, you must know what you are dealing with. You must name your storm. When you give your struggle a name, you take it from the realm of the unknown into the realm of the understood. You pull it out of the shadows and into the light where it can be examined, understood, and eventually resolved. The act of naming is more powerful than most people realize. When you name something, you define it, and what is defined can be managed. Unnamed pain is like fog. It clouds your perception, hides your direction, and leaves you wandering in circles. But once you say, "This is fear," or "This is guilt," or "This is uncertainty," the fog begins to lift. Suddenly, you are not lost inside the storm. You are standing outside of it, watching it with clarity. Naming gives you distance. Distance gives you perspective, and perspective gives you power. The reason many people stay stuck in problems for years is not that the problems are unsolvable, but because they never take time to identify what they're truly facing. They chase distractions, blame circumstances, or drown in endless thinking, hoping clarity will appear on its own. But clarity never appears without recognition. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. You cannot heal what you refuse to name. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it is never your enemy. Avoidance. Naming your storm begins with honesty. Radical honesty. It means looking at your situation without filters, without pretending, without minimizing or exaggerating. It requires you to drop every story your mind is telling and face what is actually happening. When you feel angry, call it anger. When you feel anxious, admit it without shame. When you feel lost, say it plainly. Pretending to be fine when you're falling apart is not strength. It is avoidance in disguise. Real strength begins when you look at your storm and call it by its name. There is a deep psychological shift that happens when you do this. The brain moves from emotional chaos into logical structure. You stop drowning in feelings and start understanding them. It's the difference between being inside a thunderstorm and watching the weather radar from a safe place. The storm still exists, but now you can see its shape, direction, and intensity. Once you know the kind of storm you're in, you can prepare. You can take the right steps instead of reacting blindly. Sometimes your storm has layers. On the surface, it might look like anger, but beneath it may be hurt, disappointment, or exhaustion. If you only name the surface emotion, you miss the deeper truth. The key is to keep asking yourself, what lies underneath? What am I really feeling right now? What is this emotion trying to tell me? If I go one layer deeper, what do I find? Every honest answer reveals another level of understanding. This is how self-awareness grows, not through analysis, but through courageous recognition. Naming your storm is not just about emotions, it's also about identifying the problem itself. For example, if you are struggling financially, you might think the storm is money. But when you name it more precisely, like I don't track my expenses, or I'm afraid to change careers, or I avoid talking about money because it triggers shame, the real issue begins to surface. The clearer the name, the easier the solution becomes. A vague problem creates anxiety. A specific one creates action. Words have energy. When you choose the right ones, they reshape your mindset. When you say, I'm overwhelmed, the mind believes the situation is bigger than you. But when you say, I'm facing too many commitments and need to prioritize, the chaos begins to shrink. You shift from helplessness to awareness. The storm loses some of its force because you've given it a name that defines, not destroys. This practice also invites compassion. When you name what you feel, you acknowledge your humanity. You stop treating your emotions like enemies to suppress and start treating them like messengers to understand. Every storm carries a message, something it's trying to teach you about your needs, your fears, your attachments, or your limits. When you name it, you begin to listen. The noise of the storm turns into language, and language turns into insight. It's important to remember that storms are temporary. No matter how intense they seem, they pass. Naming them helps you remember that they are not your identity. You are not your anger. You are not your stress. You are not your fear. You are the one who notices them, names them, and learns from them. This distinction matters. When you forget it, the storm controls you. When you remember it, you control the meaning you give to the storm. To make this practice part of daily life, start small. When you feel a shift in your mood, tightness in your chest, heaviness in your stomach, irritation building in your thoughts, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what storm is rising? Don't rush to fix it, just name it. This is anxiety about the future. This is loneliness after disappointment. This is impatience because I want control. Say it softly, as if you are acknowledging an old friend. The simple act of naming interrupts the emotional spiral and opens space for understanding. Sometimes it helps to write it down. When emotions are intense, thoughts become tangled. Putting words on paper untangles them. It gives structure to what feels chaotic. Write what you feel without censoring yourself, and then look at it with curiosity. You'll often discover that the storm's true cause is smaller or different than you first believed. Writing turns emotional weather into data. It transforms the intangible into something you can observe and work with. Naming also applies to external challenges. If you are dealing with conflict, instead of saying, everything is falling apart, define the storm clearly. I need to communicate boundaries more clearly. We have a misunderstanding that needs to be clarified. I'm afraid of being rejected, so I'm holding back. Precision is power. The clearer your definition, the sharper your focus on what needs to be done. You move from chaos to strategy. The Stoic philosophers often taught that a person's suffering does not come from events, but from their perception of them. Naming your storm is how you adjust that perception. You remove exaggeration, eliminate confusion, and see things as they are. The Stoics would say, call things by their right names. It was their way of keeping the mind free from illusion. When you do this, the emotional noise fades, and logic begins to guide you forward. There is also humility in this process. Naming your storm reminds you that you are not above struggle. Everyone faces internal weather, some days clear and calm, others dark and heavy. Pretending otherwise only increases the storm's intensity. Accepting that storms are part of life allows you to meet them without fear. You stop ARPing, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to show me?" That single shift turns pain into purpose. When you consistently name your storms, you begin to see patterns. Maybe you notice that certain types of criticism always trigger anger, or that uncertainty always brings anxiety. Those patterns reveal where your inner work lies. The storms repeat until you learn their lessons. Awareness breaks the cycle. Once you recognize the recurring theme, you can prepare, adjust, and eventually master it. Over time, you'll notice that storms that once felt overwhelming no longer shake you the same way. You'll feel their presence, but you'll know their names. You'll know their origins. You'll know how to ride them until they pass. That is the essence of emotional maturity. Not the absence of storms, but the ability to face them with clarity, patience, and strength. The practice of naming your storm turns confusion into direction. It transforms reaction into awareness and helplessness into choice. Each time you give language to your struggle, you reclaim a piece of your peace. You no longer fight shadows. You face something defined, something real, something manageable. The storm may roar, but you know its name. And when you know its name, you are no longer afraid of its power, because you understand it. Naming your storm is the moment you stop being at its mercy and start being the calm within it. Number 3. Detach from emotion. Every emotion carries energy, raw, powerful, and persuasive. It pulls the mind in directions that often have nothing to do with truth. When the wave of emotion rises, it demands reaction. It tells you to speak before thinking, decide before reflecting, and assume before understanding. Yet the very strength that makes emotion so human can also cloud the very clarity you need to solve a problem. Detachment is not the absence of emotion, it is the mastery of it. It is the discipline of standing at a distance from the storm within and observing it without being swept away. To detach is to create a space between feeling and action. That space is where wisdom lives. Many believe detachment means becoming cold or unfeeling, but it is the opposite. True detachment allows you to feel fully without being ruled by those feelings. It is the art of holding emotion in your hands, studying it, understanding its message, and then deciding how to respond, not out of impulse, but out of insight. The first step in detachment is awareness. You cannot detach from what you do not recognize. When emotion arises, anger, jealousy, fear, or sadness, notice it as energy moving through you. Give it permission to exist without labeling it as good or bad. The human instinct is to fight uncomfortable feelings, but resistance only strengthens them. The moment you allow emotion to be what it is, it begins to soften. Detachment starts when you stop wrestling with your emotions and start witnessing them. Detachment requires patience. Emotions have their rhythm. They rise, peak, and fade. When you rush to act while emotion is at its peak, you act from distortion. The picture you see is blurred by the fog of reaction. Waiting allows that fog to clear. What seemed urgent in anger often looks trivial in calm. What felt impossible in fear often seems manageable in stillness. The wisdom of detachment is that it buys you time to see clearly before you decide what to do. You might think of emotion as weather passing through your inner world. Detachment is the awareness that you are the sky, not the storm. The clouds move, thunder roars, rain falls, but the sky remains untouched. When you identify with the storm, you suffer with every shift of emotion. When you identify with the sky, you realize emotions come and go, but your center remains constant. That realization changes everything. When emotions dominate the mind, they distort perception. Anger narrows your focus to what feels unfair. Fear magnifies what might go wrong. Sadness colors everything with loss. Detachment widens your lens again. It reminds you that reality is larger than how you feel about it in the moment. You begin to see facts instead of projections, patterns instead of panic. The emotion may still whisper its narrative, but you no longer take every word as truth. Detachment also strengthens emotional resilience. The more you practice it, the less reactive you become. You learn to meet difficulty with curiosity instead of resistance. When disappointment hits, instead of spiraling into frustration, you step back and ask, "What is this emotion trying to show me?" That question shifts you from suffering to learning. You begin to realize emotions are teachers, not enemies. Detachment gives you the freedom to study their lessons without drowning in them. One of the most powerful tools for cultivating detachment is presence. When the mind is anchored in the present moment, emotions lose much of their grip. Most emotional pain grows in the space between memory and imagination, the past that cannot be changed, and the future that hasn't arrived. When you bring attention to the here and now, you reclaim your stability. The mind quiets, because it is no longer chasing what was or fearing what might be. Presence is the home of detachment. Another practical method is to observe your physical sensations. Emotions always have a bodily signature: a tightening in the chest, a racing pulse, a lump in the throat. When you feel overwhelmed, focus on these sensations without attaching a story to them. Describe what you notice as if you are an observer studying a natural phenomenon. This simple act moves energy from the emotional centers of the brain to the rational ones. The intensity decreases because awareness takes the wheel. You are no longer lost in the feeling. You are watching it with calm interest. In relationships, detachment brings profound clarity. When you detach emotionally, you no longer react to others based on insecurity, need, or ego. You listen without taking everything personally. You see the difference between someone else's behavior and your worth. Detachment allows love to mature from possession into understanding. You begin to realize that caring deeply does not require being controlled by how others act. Love becomes freer, cleaner, and far more peaceful. Detachment is also essential for making sound decisions. Emotions can cloud logic and create false urgency. You might rush into choices just to escape discomfort or delay necessary action because of fear. Detachment gives you the mental space to evaluate options objectively. It helps you weigh outcomes with balance instead of bias. From that state, your decisions become grounded and deliberate. The world's most effective leaders, thinkers, and creators share this skill. They feel deeply, but they act from clarity, not chaos. It's important to understand that detachment is not suppression. Suppression is denial. Detachment is discernment. When you suppress emotions, you bury them alive. They will surface later, stronger and more disruptive. Detachment allows emotions to flow through, without resistance and without attachment. You acknowledge them, understand their message, and then let them move on. Like watching waves reach the shore, you allow each one to arrive and depart naturally. To develop this practice, take moments throughout the day to check your emotional state. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now, and what is it doing to my thoughts? Notice how emotions color perception. When irritation arises, see how it makes small inconveniences feel enormous. When fear appears, see how it exaggerates uncertainty. This mindful noticing creates separation. You begin to realize emotion is just one lens, not the whole view. From that realization, detachment grows naturally. Over time, this mindset changes how you experience challenges. Instead of being consumed by emotional storms, you begin to observe their rhythm. You understand that emotions rise to signal something and then fade when acknowledged. You learn that peace is not achieved by eliminating emotion, but by relating to it differently. Detachment becomes the bridge between intensity and insight. This kind of calm does not appear overnight. It is trained through repetition, through catching yourself in moments of reaction and choosing awareness instead. Every time you pause before speaking in anger, every time you breathe through fear instead of obeying it, you strengthen your inner foundation. The more you practice, the quicker you recognize when emotion is taking over, and the easier it becomes to step back. Eventually, detachment becomes your natural response, not because you are distant, but because you are free. The most remarkable part of emotional detachment is how it transforms relationships with yourself. You start treating your inner world with gentleness instead of judgment. When emotions come, you no longer say, "This shouldn't be happening." You say, "This is happening, and I can handle it." That acceptance brings serenity. You stop fighting yourself, and in doing so, you stop fighting life. There is a timeless wisdom in this practice. Philosophers, monks, and thinkers across centuries have pointed toward the same truth. Freedom begins when you stop identifying with every feeling that arises. Emotions are visitors, not residents. They knock on the door of awareness, deliver their message, and leave. Your task is to open the door, listen, and let them go. The more you cling, the more they linger. The more you release, the faster they pass. When you learn to detach from emotion, you regain command over your inner state. You stop being pushed and pulled by every passing wave. Life still brings challenges, but you meet them from a higher ground. You can experience sorrow without collapse, anger without destruction, excitement without recklessness. That is true emotional intelligence, the ability to feel fully and respond wisely. In the end, detachment does not take you away from life, it brings you closer to it. You experience everything with greater clarity because you are no longer blinded by reaction. The world becomes more vivid, not less, because you see it as it is, uncolored by the temporary shades of emotion. You live with stability in the middle of movement, with peace in the midst of pressure. And when you can stand in that space, calm, clear, and unshaken, you discover that detachment is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of self. Number 4. See hidden patterns. Every problem in life, no matter how random it seems, carries a rhythm beneath its surface. The same frustrations appear with new faces, the same conflicts repeat in different settings, and the same emotions rise from similar triggers. These repetitions are not accidents, they are messages. Life is not just happening to you, it is revealing something to you. The key to lasting peace and growth lies in your ability to see the hidden patterns that shape your experience. When you recognize these patterns, you stop reacting blindly and start responding with awareness. You move from confusion to clarity, from repetition to realization. Patterns are the fingerprints of your mind. They show up in how you think, how you feel, and how you act. Every decision, reaction, and belief leaves behind a trail, and over time, those trails form habits, mental pathways that dictate how you navigate the world. The challenge is that most people live inside these patterns without ever noticing them. They mistake repetition for fate. They call it bad luck, when in truth, it is just unexamined behavior playing itself out again and again. To break free, you must learn to see what you've been too close to see. Seeing patterns begins with observation, but it requires honesty. You have to be willing to step back from your own story and look at it as if it belongs to someone else. Ask yourself, what situations keep returning to my life? Which emotions seem to follow me everywhere I go? Which kinds of people do I attract? And why? Which mistakes do I keep making, even after promising myself I wouldn't? The answers to these questions expose the architecture of your unconscious mind. Patterns are not coincidences, they are reflections of what you believe, often without realizing it. For example, someone who constantly feels unappreciated may discover a pattern of giving too much without setting boundaries. Someone who repeatedly ends up in conflict may notice they react defensively whenever they feel misunderstood. Someone who feels stuck in life may see that they avoid discomfort and choose safety over growth. These patterns are not punishments, they are invitations to understand yourself more deeply. Each one points to a lesson waiting to be learned. Until you learn it, the lesson repeats. The mind is like a projector, casting the same movie onto new screens. The faces and settings change, but the story remains. If you find yourself saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" that is the exact moment to pause and look for the pattern. Life is not conspiring against you. It is trying to show you something about how you see, think, or respond. Once you recognize that, the repetition loses its power. Awareness is the first step toward transformation. The deeper purpose of seeing hidden patterns is not to assign blame, but to claim responsibility. When you realize that you are a participant in the creation of your experiences, you also realize that you have the power to change them. It is not about fault, it is about ownership. You can't control everything that happens, but you can control how your patterns shape your reality. The moment you see them clearly, you can begin to rewrite them. Patterns live in your thoughts. They whisper the same sentences day after day, guiding your choices quietly. "I'm not good enough. People always let me down. Nothing ever works out for me." These inner phrases may sound harmless, but they act as instructions to your subconscious. The mind seeks to confirm what it already believes. When you expect disappointment, you notice every failure and overlook every success. When you believe the world is hostile, you find proof of hostility everywhere. Seeing hidden patterns means catching these silent instructions before they run your life. Patterns also live in your emotions. Every strong feeling carries a trail back to an older version of yourself. When fear rises, it might not belong to the present moment. It may be an echo from a past memory. When anger erupts quickly, it might not be about what just happened, but about something unresolved that has been waiting for your attention. Emotional patterns are like alarm bells. They keep ringing until you listen to what they are saying. If the same emotion appears again and again, it is not trying to hurt you, it is trying to wake you. Sometimes the clearest way to see a pattern is to observe your reactions. Pay attention to what consistently triggers you. The things that disturb your peace are mirrors, showing where you still have work to do. If criticism stings deeply, it might be pointing to a wound around self-worth. If rejection feels unbearable, it might be revealing your dependence on external validation. Each reaction contains information. The stronger the emotion, the closer you are to something important. Seeing patterns is an act of curiosity, not judgment. It is looking at yourself with compassion and saying, "What is this trying to teach me?" The environment you live in also reflects your inner patterns. Your habits, surroundings, and relationships are mirrors of your inner state. If your life feels cluttered, maybe your mind is overloaded. If you constantly find yourself in draining relationships, perhaps there's a pattern of people-pleasing or avoidance of boundaries. External circumstances often echo internal patterns. Once you notice the echo, you can trace it back to its source. Patterns repeat because the mind loves familiarity. Even when a pattern causes pain, it feels safe because it's known. The brain interprets predictability as security, so it keeps returning to what it understands. Change feels dangerous because it demands uncertainty. That's why seeing patterns is so powerful. It brings the unconscious into awareness, and awareness dissolves. When you understand why you do what you do, you reclaim choice. You are no longer running on old programming. You are designing your path consciously. Breaking a pattern doesn't require force, it requires understanding. The moment you truly see a pattern for what it is, it begins to lose strength. Awareness weakens repetition. Imagine you've spent years reacting with frustration whenever someone disagrees with you. The day you recognize that your reaction stems from a need to feel respected, the dynamic changes instantly. You can now address the need instead of fighting the symptom. Insight replaces impulse. That is how transformation happens. Quietly, through understanding. Seeing hidden patterns also deepens empathy. When you recognize your own repetitive tendencies, you start to see them in others too. You understand that everyone is fighting patterns shaped by their past, patterns of fear, doubt, pride, or insecurity. This realization softens judgment and strengthens connection. Instead of blaming others for their behavior, you begin to recognize the invisible scripts that guide them. Just as they guide you, compassion grows naturally from awareness. One practical way to uncover hidden patterns is reflection through journaling or contemplation. At the end of the day, look back and ask, what repeated itself today? What triggered me more than it should have? What situations felt familiar? Over time, answers emerge. You'll start to see connections between your actions, your emotions, and your results. Once these links appear, you can change one part of the chain, and the entire pattern shifts. Another method is to listen to the language you use daily. Your words reveal your patterns. Phrases like, I always, I never, or people like me can't, are red flags. They expose rigid beliefs that keep you trapped in predictable cycles. Replace them with language that opens possibilities. Sometimes, this time, maybe there's another way. Words shape perception, and perception shapes reality. Changing your vocabulary is often the first step to changing your patterns. The ability to see hidden patterns turns suffering into strategy. Problems stop feeling like random misfortunes and start feeling like coded lessons. Every obstacle becomes a teacher. Every repetition a signal for awareness. The same situation that once frustrated you becomes the very tool that frees you. You realize that life's design is not against you, it is for you, constantly guiding you toward understanding. When you cultivate this vision, your relationship with difficulty changes completely. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what is this showing me about myself? That question is the gateway to growth. It transforms every setback into wisdom and every challenge into progress. The storms of life lose their threat because you can now read their patterns. You begin to anticipate emotional weather instead of being caught by surprise. Seeing hidden patterns is the foundation of self-mastery. It gives you the map of your own mind. Once you have that map, you no longer wander in confusion. You navigate with intention. You can predict where old habits might appear, prepare for them, and choose differently. You start to build a new rhythm, one guided not by repetition but by awareness. Ultimately, the power to see hidden patterns is the power to evolve consciously. It is the quiet art of decoding your own life and finding meaning where others see only chaos. When you can look at your challenges and recognize the recurring themes behind them, you step into a deeper understanding of yourself and the world. You no longer fear repetition because you see it as a compass pointing toward your growth. And when you live with that awareness, life stops feeling like a cycle. It begins to feel like a spiral, each turn carrying you higher toward wisdom, freedom, and lasting peace. Number 5. Reframe the problem. Every problem carries a hidden doorway, but most people never see it because they are too focused on the wall. When something goes wrong, the mind narrows its focus to the pain, the loss, the unfairness. It clings to the first interpretation that appears. This is bad, this is impossible, this shouldn't be happening. But what if the issue isn't the problem itself, but the way we're looking at it? Reframing is the art of shifting perspective until new meaning appears. It's not denial, it's not pretending that pain doesn't exist. It's seeing through the surface of difficulty to discover the opportunity hidden underneath. When you reframe a problem, you change your relationship with it. Instead of seeing it as an enemy, you begin to treat it as a messenger. The problem isn't here to punish you, it's here to push you toward growth. Every situation that feels like a dead end is actually offering you a new direction, but only if you're willing to see differently. This shift doesn't require outside help or luck. It begins with a single question. What else could this mean? That one question has the power to dissolve tension and open your mind. Most people are trapped in a single interpretation of reality. Something goes wrong, and they declare it a failure. But when you ask what else it could mean, you invite a broader truth. Maybe that rejection wasn't a punishment. It was protection. Maybe the delay wasn't an obstacle. It was preparation. Maybe what looks like loss is simply space being cleared for something better. Reframing doesn't change the facts, but it changes the lens through which you see them, and that changes everything. Consider this. Two people can face the same event and walk away with completely different experiences. One person sees crisis, the other sees challenge. One feels defeated, the other feels motivated. The event didn't decide the outcome, the perception did. The way you frame a situation defines the meaning it holds and the power it has over you. When you shift your frame, you shift your energy, you reclaim choice. The most powerful reframes often come from curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "What is this trying to show me?" That question transforms victimhood into awareness. It takes you out of helplessness and into discovery. Problems lose their heaviness when you look at them as teachers instead of punishments. They stop being something to escape and become something to explore. Every challenge has a lesson embedded within it, waiting for your attention. Reframing requires you to pause before reacting. The mind's first response is rarely accurate. It's emotional, automatic, and usually anchored in past experiences. When you feel triggered, your perception tightens, your vision becomes small. But when you take a breath and step back, the frame widens. You start to see the bigger picture. You notice patterns, intentions, and possibilities that were invisible before. A problem viewed from a higher angle often transforms into a pathway. Let's imagine you lose a job. The default frame says, "I failed. I'm worthless. Everything is falling apart." But a new frame might say, "This is a redirection. This is a moment to realign my purpose. This is freedom disguised as loss." The external event is identical, but the emotional outcome is drastically different. One frame leads to despair, the other to strength. The choice between them determines not only how you feel, but what you do next. Reframing isn't about false positivity, it's about truth from a higher dimension. It's recognizing that reality has layers, and your current frame might only be showing the most painful one. When you reframe consciously, you train your mind to search for growth, for insight, for hidden benefit. That doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means acknowledging the difficulty while also asking, what gift could this hold? Sometimes the gift isn't immediate, it's revealed through endurance, patience, or hindsight. There is profound strength in choosing a frame that empowers you instead of one that drains you. For example, instead of saying, "This is too hard," you can reframe it as, "This is strengthening me." Instead of saying, "I'm stuck," you can say, "I'm in transition." Instead of saying, "No one understands me," you can say, "This is teaching me how to understand myself." Words shape thought, and thought shapes perception. The language you use builds the frame you live in. Reframing also softens resistance. When you fight reality, you create suffering. When you reframe it, you align with it. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means seeing things clearly without distortion. It's saying, "This is what is, and I can choose how to interpret it." That choice gives you power where there used to be pain. The frame becomes flexible, and flexibility is the essence of resilience. Sometimes reframing requires imagination. The problem in front of you may not look solvable, but imagination can reveal unseen options. Ask yourself, if I were advising someone else in this situation, what would I tell them? That question removes ego and emotion, allowing clarity to emerge. You begin to see the situation from a wiser, calmer version of yourself. The shift might be small, but its effects ripple through every part of your thinking. In reframing, timing matters too. The mind often resists new interpretations when emotions are raw. You can't reframe effectively while you're still inside the storm. You need distance, step away, breathe, and allow the emotional intensity to settle. Once calm returns, your perspective becomes more flexible. It's then that the mind can explore new frames without resistance. Sometimes the most powerful reframe comes not in the heat of the moment, but in the quiet afterward. One of the most valuable aspects of reframing is that it turns chaos into clarity. When you change how you define a problem, solutions often reveal themselves naturally. For instance, if you frame a conflict as a personal attack, you become defensive. But if you reframe it as a communication gap, you become curious. The shift from defense to curiosity opens space for understanding. The conflict transforms from something to win into something to learn from. That single reframe can turn tension into teamwork. Reframing is also about perspective across time. Ask yourself how you might see this problem a year from now. Will it still feel as heavy, as impossible, as defining? Most of the time, the answer is no. You will have grown, circumstances will have changed, and what felt overwhelming will seem smaller. That future perspective can be borrowed now. It allows you to approach the present with calm wisdom instead of panic. Some of the world's most resilient people have mastered reframing. They've trained their minds to look at adversity as training. They interpret every challenge as evidence of their strength, not as proof of their weakness. When something goes wrong, they don't ask why me, they ask, what is this preparing me for? This mindset doesn't make life easier, but it makes it meaningful. Meaning turns pain into purpose, and purpose transforms endurance into peace. The act of reframing is also a spiritual practice. It reminds you that life is not just happening outside of you, it's responding to your perception. Your internal state colors your experience. When you shift how you interpret events, you shift the energy you bring into them. A calm, open frame invites harmony. A rigid, fearful frame invites resistance. Reframing is, in essence, aligning your perception with possibility instead of limitation. To strengthen your ability to reframe, practice it in small moments. When something minor goes wrong, a delay, a disagreement, a mistake, pause and ask, what else could this mean? Over time, your brain becomes trained to see multiple angles automatically. You begin to meet life with flexibility, not rigidity. Even when large problems arise, your mind instinctively searches for meaning, not misery. The ultimate goal of reframing is liberation. It frees you from the tyranny of a single perspective. It reminds you that reality is vast, and you always have the power to choose the lens through which you experience it. When you reframe effectively, you discover that problems are not enemies, they are invitations to evolve. They challenge the limits of your perceptions so you can expand into greater understanding. So, when the next difficulty appears, don't rush to label it as bad. Instead, hold it in your awareness and ask, how else can I see this? In that moment, your mind stretches. You begin to see new colors in what once looked gray. The problem remains the same, but you no longer do. You rise above it, not by erasing it, but by viewing it from a higher plane of awareness. This is the quiet miracle of reframing. It turns life's harsh edges into doorways. It transforms confusion into insight, pain into perspective, resistance into wisdom. Every time you reframe, you strengthen your inner peace and reclaim your creative power. You remember that meaning is not something life gives you. It's something you give to life. And once you master that, no problem can hold you prisoner again. Number 6. Simplify every thought. The mind loves to complicate what is simple. It takes a moment of silence and fills it with noise. It takes a single challenge and builds 1,000 imagined outcomes around it. It twists clarity into confusion because it believes that thinking more deeply must lead to better answers. But most of the time, the opposite is true. The mind that overthinks loses its sharpness. Simplicity restores it. When you simplify your thoughts, you return to what matters. You cut away the unnecessary weight that prevents clear action, calm judgment, and inner peace. Complex thinking often begins with fear. The mind fears uncertainty, so it tries to calculate every possibility. It analyzes, worries, and compares until even the smallest issue feels enormous. But fear disguised as analysis only multiplies confusion. The truth rarely hides in complexity. The truth is simple, direct, and quiet. It does not need layers of interpretation, it just needs space to be seen. Simplifying your thoughts means clearing that space, removing the noise, and allowing your mind to breathe again. When your thinking becomes cluttered, every decision feels heavier. You hesitate, you doubt, you replay conversations and imagine scenarios that never happen. Simplifying is not about ignoring these thoughts. It's about reducing their power by sorting what is useful from what is not. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me right now? If the answer is no, let it go. The mind is like a room. It cannot feel peaceful when it's filled with clutter. You need to sweep it daily by discarding what serves no purpose. One of the simplest ways to clear mental clutter is to separate facts from stories. Facts are neutral. They describe what happened. Stories are the interpretations your mind builds around those facts. For instance, if someone doesn't reply to your message, the fact is silence. The story might be, they're ignoring me, or I did something wrong. But stories are assumptions, not truths. When you strip away the story, the emotion loses its intensity. You stop feeding anxiety with imagination and return to what is real. Simplifying your thoughts begins with choosing facts over fiction. You can also simplify by reducing multitasking in your mind. When you try to hold too many thoughts at once, focus fragments. Each idea competes for your attention, and nothing receives your full energy. The mind performs best when it works on one thing with complete presence. Focus is simplicity in action. When you dedicate your awareness to a single task, you give yourself the gift of calm productivity. The result is not only higher quality thinking, but also deeper peace. Simplicity is also the foundation of good decision-making. Overanalyzing creates hesitation because the mind gets trapped in endless what-ifs. Simplicity cuts through indecision by asking direct questions. What do I know right now? What matters most? What's the next small step? These questions act like a compass. They guide you through confusion toward clarity. Complicated problems often collapse when reduced to their essence. A simple question can dissolve hours of mental chaos. Another important aspect of mental simplicity is learning to separate what you can control from what you cannot. Much of mental suffering comes from trying to manage what's beyond your reach. You cannot control the past, other people's opinions, or the timing of life's events. You can only control your actions, your attitude, and your effort. When you focus your thoughts on what's truly yours to influence, your mind quiets down. Simplicity emerges naturally when attention stops scattering across the uncontrollable. Simplicity is not about thinking less, it's about thinking clean. A simple mind isn't empty, it's focused, deliberate, and peaceful. It doesn't rush to fill silence or decorate every moment with noise. It trusts stillness. When you learn to simplify your thoughts, you become less reactive and more reflective. You stop chasing every impulse or emotion and instead observe them with distance. This mental stillness becomes a source of strength. You begin to act from calm awareness rather than from restless thinking. One practical technique to simplify your thinking is to write things down. When thoughts live only in your mind, they swirl endlessly, merging and overlapping. Writing them out forces clarity. On paper, confusion becomes visible, and visible confusion can be organized. You can see what's essential and what's excess. You can identify what requires action and what requires acceptance. Writing is a form of decluttering. It turns mental chaos into ordered awareness. The discipline of simplifying thought also requires humility. Complexity often comes from ego, the belief that everything must be figured out, that you must have all the answers. But the wisest minds recognize their limits. They know that not every question needs an immediate answer, not every feeling needs analysis, not every situation needs control. Simplicity flows from trust, the trust that clarity will come in its own time and that peace exists beyond constant mental effort. When you simplify, communication with yourself and others improves. Overcomplicated thoughts lead to unclear words. When your mind is simple, your speech becomes straightforward, honest, and kind. People trust those who think clearly and express calmly. Simplicity in thought becomes simplicity in action, and simplicity in action leads to harmony in life. The less tangled your inner dialogue, the more effectively you move through the world. In difficult moments, simplicity can be your anchor. When emotions run high, the mind tends to spin in circles, generating endless arguments and fears. Simplify by asking one clear question: what is the next right thing I can do? That single focus brings your awareness back to the present. It removes the burden of overplanning the future and reliving the past. The next right thing is always simple, because truth doesn't hide in complication. It reveals itself when you are fully here, now. Simplicity also deepens emotional balance. Many emotional struggles stem from tangled thinking, layer upon layer of interpretation and judgment. When you simplify, you separate emotion from story. For example, I feel sad is simple and true, but I feel sad because I'm not enough, and everything always goes wrong is complicated and draining. The first statement honors the feeling without building unnecessary suffering around it. Simplifying your emotions through direct acknowledgement brings relief and healing. Another key practice is mindfulness of thought. Watch how thoughts arise, grow, and fade. Most vanish on their own if you don't chase them. The mind produces hundreds of thoughts each hour, but only a few deserve your attention. Simplicity is the ability to choose which thoughts deserve space. Not every mental whisper is worth following. Choose those that build clarity, courage, or kindness. The rest can pass like clouds in a wide sky. Modern life tempts us to fill every moment with input, news, messages, noise, endless stimulation. But clarity cannot exist where there's no silence. A simple mind thrives in quiet. Moments of stillness reset your mental rhythm. Step away from screens, slow your breathing, and let your thoughts settle like dust in sunlight. Out of that stillness, insights arise naturally. Simplicity is not forced. It's revealed when the noise fades. The discipline of simplification also applies to goals and desires. A cluttered mind often comes from chasing too many outcomes at once. Focus on a few meaningful priorities. Ask yourself what truly matters. Many pursuits seem important, but serve only as distractions. Simplicity restores alignment with your deeper purpose. When your goals are few and your actions focused, you feel less anxious and more fulfilled. A simple direction often leads to extraordinary progress. Sometimes people fear simplicity because it feels like losing depth. But simplicity is not shallow. It is refined. It's the wisdom that remains after confusion dissolves. It's the clear lake after the storm has passed. A simple mind sees truth directly, without distortion. It understands that peace and power come from uncluttered awareness, not from overcomplicated thought. If you want to simplify your thinking, start each day with one guiding idea instead of a dozen worries. It could be a phrase like, "Do one thing well," or "Stay calm and kind." That single intention becomes your mental compass. Whenever your thoughts begin to spiral, return to it. Simplicity grows through repetition. Each time you redirect your mind toward what's essential, you strengthen your clarity. At the end of the day, simplicity is an act of self-compassion. It's choosing not to burden your mind with unnecessary weight. It's deciding to trust that clear thought leads to peaceful action. When you simplify, life becomes lighter. You realize that peace was never missing. It was just hidden beneath the noise. The more you simplify your thoughts, the closer you move to that quiet strength within you, the space where wisdom lives, where the world slows down and you can finally see with calm eyes. Simplicity doesn't make life easy, but it makes it livable. It strips away illusion, restores balance, and returns you to what is real. When you practice it daily, even the most complicated challenges begin to feel manageable. You stop fighting with your mind and start flowing with it. The power of simplicity is not in thinking less. It's in thinking clearly, cleanly, and with purpose. And when your mind becomes simple, your life naturally follows, unfolding with the quiet grace of someone who finally sees what truly matters. Number 7. Choose calm action. There is a quiet strength in calm action, a rare kind of power that doesn't need noise or force to make an impact. Calm action is not passive, it's deliberate, grounded, and steady. It is the choice to move forward with clarity instead of chaos, to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. In moments of pressure, when emotions run high and urgency clouds the mind, calm action becomes your compass. It helps you navigate the storm without being swept away by it. The most successful, peaceful, and balanced people are not those who never face difficulty. They are those who have learned to act from stillness instead of fear. When chaos strikes, the instinct is often to do something, anything, to escape discomfort. But impulsive movement rarely leads to solutions. It's the mental equivalent of running in circles. You move fast but go nowhere. Calm action begins when you pause before reacting, not to delay progress, but to ensure direction. That single breath between stimulus and response is the birthplace of wisdom. It's where emotion settles and perspective expands. Calmness gives action precision. Without calm, even good intentions can turn into destructive energy. A calm mind sees reality clearly. When your emotions are stirred, perception narrows. The problem looks larger, the options fewer, and the consequences heavier. But when you center yourself before acting, you begin to see what's really happening instead of what your fear imagines. Calmness is like clear water. Only when it's still can it reflect the truth. From that clarity, the right action becomes obvious, often simpler and smaller than expected. Calmness doesn't slow progress, it ensures accuracy. Choosing calm action doesn't mean ignoring emotion. It means acknowledging feelings without letting them lead the way. Anger, anxiety, and frustration are signals, not steering wheels. They point to what needs attention, but should never dictate how you move. When you act from calm, emotions become data, not decisions. You listen, you learn, but you lead with reason and restraint. This discipline transforms emotional energy into purposeful motion. In challenging situations, people often confuse intensity with effectiveness. They rush, shout, or push harder, believing that tension equals progress. But the truth is that calm action often outperforms frantic effort. A calm leader inspires confidence. A calm parent creates safety. A calm thinker finds solutions others miss. Calm energy is contagious. It stabilizes the environment around you. In contrast, reactive energy multiplies confusion. When you choose calm, you become a center of balance in a world addicted to urgency. Calm action is rooted in presence. You cannot be calm when your mind is divided between the past and the future. The present moment is your only point of true control. When you focus on what can be done now, this step, this word, this breath, overwhelm loses its grip. The mind loves to complicate with endless what-ifs, but calm living is built on what now. Asking yourself, what can I do right now, calmly and clearly, shifts your energy from anxiety to agency. Another vital part of calm action is self-trust. People often act impulsively because they don't trust that stillness can guide them. They fear that doing nothing, even briefly, means losing control. But calmness is not inaction, it's preparation. It's the gathering of inner alignment before movement. When you trust your capacity to respond wisely, you no longer rush to prove control. You act with quiet assurance, knowing that patience is not weakness, but power under discipline. Calm action also requires you to separate what's urgent from what's important. The mind tends to prioritize what screams loudest, not what matters most. Calm awareness allows you to distinguish between noise and necessity. It teaches you to say no to distractions disguised as emergencies. Every time you choose to act calmly instead of react quickly, you reclaim time, energy, and dignity. You move from being driven by life to driving it. In moments of conflict, calm action becomes your armor. When others lose their composure, your stillness disarms chaos. People expect confrontation. They rarely expect calm understanding. Responding with composure doesn't make you submissive. It makes you strategic. It allows you to read situations fully before deciding how to engage. Calmness is often mistaken for indifference, but it's actually the deepest form of awareness. It means you see everything but choose what deserves your energy. Calm action is also sustainable action. Frantic movement burns energy fast. Calm movement endures. You can't maintain clarity if your mind is always tense. Calmness creates mental space to rest between steps, to breathe between battles. That rhythm prevents burnout. It allows persistence without exhaustion. Many give up, not because the path is impossible, but because they never learned how to walk it calmly. When life demands quick decisions, calm action doesn't vanish. It adapts. You can be fast and calm at once. Calmness is not slowness, it's steadiness. It's the ability to move quickly without panic. This is why trained professionals, pilots, surgeons, rescuers rely on calm under pressure. They've learned that composure keeps the mind functional when stakes are high. Calmness ensures that fear doesn't hijack skill. You can train yourself the same way, by practicing calm decision-making in small daily moments, so it becomes instinct when life intensifies. Calm action also deepens relationships. When you listen calmly, people feel heard. When you speak calmly, words carry more weight. When you respond calmly, conflicts de-escalate before they ignite. Calmness builds bridges that force never could. It's a quiet authority that invites cooperation instead of resistance. Through calm behavior, you teach others how to treat you with respect, patience, and consideration. Sometimes calm action means doing less. The world glorifies busyness, but true effectiveness comes from focus, not frenzy. Calmness helps you choose where to direct effort and where to release control. Some problems resolve through attention, others resolve through time. Calmness gives you the wisdom to know the difference. Acting on everything dilutes your energy. Acting on what truly matters multiplies your impact. Calm action also nurtures creativity. Inspiration doesn't thrive in panic, it blooms in stillness. When your mind is peaceful, ideas emerge effortlessly. You begin to see possibilities you couldn't while stressed. Calm action allows space for insight, for innovation born from presence. Great ideas often appear not in the noise of doing, but in the quiet moments between actions, when your mind rests just long enough for clarity to speak. To live a life guided by calm action, practice the art of slowing your inner pace, even when the world speeds up. When faced with pressure, ground yourself in breath. One deep inhale can restore focus. One slow exhale can dissolve tension. Then ask, what is the smallest step I can take with calm intention? The answer will always be simple. Calm action doesn't demand grand gestures. It values deliberate ones. It's better to take one clear step forward than 100 frantic ones sideways. When frustration arises, remember that you are not your emotion. You are the awareness observing it. That awareness is calm by nature. By acting from that deeper stillness, you maintain control even in the presence of strong emotion. Calmness doesn't remove passion. It refines it. It channels energy toward purpose instead of chaos. The more often you return to calm before acting, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, peace stops being something you chase. It becomes your default state. Calm action is the bridge between intention and outcome. It turns wisdom into movement without distortion. You may know what's right, but without calmness, execution falters. You may feel motivated, but without composure, effort scatters. Calm action unites thought, feeling, and behavior into one coherent flow. It's the state where alignment replaces anxiety and purpose replaces panic. To build this quality, make calmness your daily practice, not just a reaction to crisis. Start your mornings in quiet reflection. Before major decisions, pause long enough to feel centered. Throughout the day, check in with your breath. Each of these moments of stillness strengthens the muscle of calm. Over time, it becomes your natural response, even under pressure. The world doesn't slow down, but your inner world can. Choosing calm action transforms more than how you handle problems. It changes who you are within them. You become someone who radiates steadiness, who leads through example rather than control. People sense it, opportunities align with it, chaos respects it. Calmness turns ordinary action into intentional mastery. It's not about doing more, it's about doing rightly, clearly, and with peace. And when life tests you, when everything feels uncertain and the noise of fear grows loud, return to your calm center. The storm outside cannot touch a mind that has learned to act from stillness. Choose calm action, and your steps, no matter how small, will always lead you forward. Because peace is not found in stillness alone. It is found in motion guided by calmness. That is the strength that endures. Number 8. Trust inner wisdom. There is a voice inside you that speaks without words, a kind of knowing that doesn't shout but quietly guides. Trusting your inner wisdom means listening to that voice even when logic argues, even when others disagree, even when fear tells you to wait. It's that calm certainty you feel deep in your chest when something just feels right or wrong, long before you can explain it. Inner wisdom isn't mystical, it's the sum of your experiences, your intuition, your pattern recognition, and your emotional intelligence, all working together beneath conscious thought. It's the part of you that already knows, long before your mind catches up. When you trust your inner wisdom, you begin to live from alignment rather than anxiety. You stop looking for approval and start listening for truth. So many people spend their lives seeking advice, asking others what they should do, collecting opinions until they drown in them. But at some point, all the answers outside of you blur, and the only one that matters is the one that feels deeply honest inside. Trusting your inner wisdom is about remembering that you are not lost. You are just learning to hear yourself again. Inner wisdom often whispers when the world is loud. It doesn't compete with noise. It waits for silence. That's why it's so easy to miss. The mind demands evidence, but the inner self offers direction. Logic wants data. Intuition offers clarity. They can work together, but one cannot replace the other. When you quiet your inner chatter, when you let go of the need to figure everything out, you create space for that quiet knowing to rise. And when it does, it feels like exhaling after holding your breath too long. The challenge is that trusting yourself requires courage. It's easier to doubt. It's safer to rely on external validation. But wisdom grows only when exercised. You strengthen inner trust the same way you build muscle by using it. Start small. Make a choice guided purely by how it feels, not how it looks. See what happens. Notice that the more you listen inwardly, the more consistent your peace becomes. Inner wisdom rarely leads to immediate comfort, but it always leads to genuine alignment. There will be times when your mind argues with your intuition. You'll sense something is off, yet logic will present 10 reasons to ignore it. You'll feel drawn toward a path that makes no practical sense. But intuition doesn't need to justify itself. It's based on deep recognition. Your subconscious reading signals too subtle for conscious awareness. That's why hindsight so often reveals that gut feeling was right. Trusting your inner wisdom means respecting the intelligence within your instincts, even when they can't yet explain themselves. Your inner wisdom also protects you from manipulation. When you trust yourself, you stop being easily swayed by other people's opinions or emotions. You can hear feedback without absorbing it, observe without agreeing. Inner wisdom acts as a filter, letting in what aligns and rejecting what disturbs your peace. It's the invisible boundary that keeps you authentic in a world that constantly tries to mold you. The process of trusting your inner wisdom begins with learning to listen. Stillness is the soil where intuition grows. When your mind is full of worry, judgment, or noise, inner guidance becomes faint. But in calm awareness, it speaks clearly. Sometimes it arrives as a feeling in the body, a tightening, a warmth, a pull. Other times, it appears as a sudden clarity, an unexplainable but steady sense of direction. These sensations are not random, they're signals. Your body and spirit are in constant dialogue, but you must slow down to hear them. One way to cultivate this trust is to notice when your inner voice has already been right. Recall moments when you ignored your gut and regretted it later. Remember times when you followed it and everything unfolded with ease. Those memories become proof that your intuition is reliable. The more evidence you gather, the easier it becomes to trust it in the future. It's not blind faith, it's remembering your own accuracy. Your inner wisdom also operates beyond fear. Fear screams, but intuition speaks softly. Fear focuses on survival. Wisdom focuses on truth. When you feel torn between two choices, check your energy. Does the thought of one path make you anxious, tight, or small? Or does it bring calmness, lightness, even if it's uncertain? That difference in sensation often reveals what's driven by fear and what's guided by wisdom. Intuition never pressures, it invites, it doesn't rush, it reassures. As you develop a relationship with your inner self, you begin to notice patterns. You start recognizing how your intuition communicates uniquely to you. For some, it's a physical sensation. For others, it's a mental image, a dream, or an inexplicable pull. Whatever its language, it becomes clearer with trust. Just like any relationship, consistency deepens communication. The more often you listen and respond, the louder that inner wisdom grows. Trusting your inner wisdom doesn't mean rejecting reason, it means integrating it. Intuition offers direction, logic builds the path. Inner wisdom gives you the what, rational thought gives you the how. Together they create decisions that are both inspired and practical. Without intuition, life becomes mechanical. Without reason, intuition becomes untethered. Wisdom lives in the harmony between the two. There's a deep peace that comes when you stop outsourcing your decisions. You begin to live with a quiet confidence that no external approval can replace. Even when others disagree, even when results take time, you remain centered because your choices come from inner conviction. That's freedom, the kind that can't be shaken by circumstance. You stop chasing certainty outside because you've found guidance within. Sometimes your inner wisdom will guide you toward change that scares you. It may tell you to leave a job, a relationship, or a comfort zone you've outgrown. And while your mind panics about the unknown, your soul will feel strangely calm. That calmness is truth. It's the vibration of alignment. Inner wisdom rarely shouts go. It simply stops resisting when you're ready to move. Trust that ease, even when it leads away from the familiar. Inner wisdom also helps you navigate complexity. Life often presents problems with no perfect answer, only better directions. The mind tries to calculate every outcome, but wisdom sees through simplicity. It feels what aligns, what carries peace, and what honors your integrity. When you act from that place, the outcome matters less because the process itself feels honest. Another sign of inner wisdom is patience. It knows when to wait. Sometimes, not knowing what to do is a signal to pause, not panic. Your intuition might not reveal the full picture yet, because timing isn't right. When you force clarity, you create confusion. When you relax into trust, clarity arrives naturally. Wisdom doesn't rush truth. It lets it unfold. To strengthen your connection to inner guidance, practice solitude. Step away from constant stimulation. Spend quiet moments journaling, meditating, or simply breathing without distraction. When you stop filling every silence, you start hearing what's always been speaking. In that space, insights arise effortlessly, not from effort, but from awareness. As you grow in self-trust, you'll notice that intuition doesn't always lead to comfort, but always leads to authenticity. It will push you toward growth, honesty, and freedom. Sometimes that means making difficult choices, letting go of attachments, or standing alone. But what you gain in return is integrity, the alignment between what you know, feel, and do. That integrity is the truest form of wisdom in action. Over time, trusting your inner wisdom becomes your natural way of being. You begin to act from peace, rather than pressure. You stop second-guessing every choice because you've learned that even mistakes are lessons guided by growth. Every path leads back to awareness. The more you honor your intuition, the more it honors you with clarity, with calmness, with direction. Trusting your inner wisdom is ultimately an act of self-love. It's saying, "I believe in my ability to know." It's reclaiming the authority of your own life. When you follow that inner compass, you may not always know where you're going, but you'll always know you're on the right path. Because wisdom isn't something you find, it's something you uncover, something that's been quietly waiting within you all along. And once you trust it, you never lose it again. Number 9. Reflect, learn, adjust. Life constantly presents opportunities for growth, but most of us move through it on autopilot, missing the lessons hidden within our experiences. Reflection is the bridge between experience and understanding, the moment when life stops being a series of random events and becomes a teacher. Reflection allows you to pause, observe, and make sense of what has happened. It transforms mistakes into guidance, failures into insight, and victories into awareness. Without reflection, learning is incomplete. Without learning, adjustment is impossible. Reflection begins with honesty. You must be willing to examine your actions, your thoughts, and your decisions without sugarcoating or blame. Too often, we justify poor outcomes with excuses or narratives that protect our ego. Reflection requires dropping those defenses. It is the quiet practice of asking, what happened here and what was my role in it? When you look squarely at reality, you uncover the subtle truths that shape your growth. After reflection comes learning. Every experience carries a lesson, but it is not always obvious. Sometimes the lesson is hidden in discomfort, in frustration, or in disappointment. Learning requires discernment, the ability to extract wisdom from events rather than getting trapped in regret. It is recognizing patterns, noticing cause and effect, and understanding what actions yield results. Learning is active, not passive. It is a commitment to improving your understanding of yourself, others, and the world. Learning without adjustment is like reading a map, but never taking a new route. Reflection and learning become meaningful only when they change your behavior. Adjustment is the application of insight. It's the step where understanding transforms into action. After you reflect on a mistake, learn from it, and identify what went wrong, you adjust your approach, your choices, or your mindset. Adjustment ensures that you do not repeat the same errors, and it reinforces the habit of conscious growth. One of the most powerful aspects of this cycle is that it empowers you to take control. Life is unpredictable and challenges are inevitable, but your response doesn't have to be chaotic or reactive. Reflection allows clarity. Learning gives context. Adjustment creates progress. By practicing this cycle consistently, you move from being at the mercy of circumstances to actively shaping your experience. You become an architect of your own growth, capable of transforming setbacks into stepping stones. Reflection can be practiced daily. At the end of each day, consider what went well, what didn't, and why. Ask questions such as, what actions today brought me closer to my goals? Or, where did I let fear, pride, or distraction influence me? These inquiries are not for judgment, but for awareness. They illuminate habits and thought patterns, revealing where your attention has been productive and where it has been wasted. Learning requires curiosity. You must be willing to see beyond the surface of events and ask deeper questions. Why did this situation occur? How did my behavior contribute to it? What assumptions or beliefs influenced my choices? Curiosity shifts reflection from criticism to exploration. It transforms analysis into understanding. Learning becomes a journey rather than a chore. With curiosity, every challenge becomes a chance to grow rather than a burden to endure. Adjustment requires courage. Knowledge alone does not change outcomes. Only action does. It can be uncomfortable to alter behaviors, admit mistakes, or adopt new strategies. But courage is the bridge between insight and implementation. Each adjustment, no matter how small, reinforces your capacity to act intentionally. Over time, consistent adjustment builds resilience, skill, and wisdom. You stop repeating ineffective behaviors because each reflection leads to a conscious improvement. The cycle of reflection, learning, and adjustment also deepens self-awareness. When you observe your reactions, decisions, and outcomes regularly, patterns emerge. You begin to recognize recurring behaviors that either serve or hinder you. You notice the triggers that provoke unnecessary stress or negative habits. This awareness is invaluable because it allows you to preempt problems before they escalate. The more attuned you become to your own patterns, the more adept you are at steering your life intentionally. Reflection is not just about correcting mistakes, it's also about recognizing what works. Celebrating successes and understanding why they succeeded reinforces effective habits. By analyzing positive outcomes, you create a blueprint for replicating them in the future. Reflection ensures that you don't overlook your strengths while focusing only on weaknesses. Learning from success is as vital as learning from failure because it builds confidence, insight, and consistency. Adjustments are most effective when they are deliberate and specific. Vague intentions like "I will try harder" or "I'll be better next time" are insufficient. The adjustment must identify a clear action. "I will respond calmly to criticism," or "I will spend 15 minutes daily planning my priorities." Specificity transforms abstract insight into practical steps that can be implemented and measured. Deliberate adjustments create momentum, turning small improvements into significant transformation over time. Patience is essential in this process. Reflection, learning, and adjustment do not yield immediate perfection. Habits are deeply ingrained, and transformation occurs gradually. The purpose of this cycle is progress, not perfection. Each iteration strengthens your capacity for wisdom and resilience. Even when adjustments fail or challenges persist, the process itself cultivates mastery of yourself. Progress is cumulative, and patience ensures sustainability. Reflection also cultivates humility. By consistently examining your role in outcomes, you acknowledge that you are not infallible. Mistakes become teachers rather than threats to identity. Humility opens the mind to learning because it replaces defensiveness with receptivity. When you accept that growth requires adaptation and that every experience has lessons, you move through life with greater grace, flexibility, and resilience. This practice strengthens emotional intelligence as well. Reflection allows you to observe not only your actions, but your emotional responses. You notice what triggers fear, anger, or impatience. Learning teaches you how to interpret these emotions constructively. Adjustment enables you to respond differently in the future. Over time, you develop the capacity to act thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, enhancing relationships, decision-making, and personal satisfaction. One effective tool is journaling. Writing reflections forces clarity, turning abstract thoughts into tangible insights. Documenting lessons learned and adjustments planned creates accountability and reinforces memory. Journaling allows you to track progress, observe patterns, and review previous adjustments to see their effectiveness. It transforms reflection from fleeting thoughts into concrete knowledge and planned action. Another important element is feedback. Reflection doesn't occur in isolation from the world. Listening to trusted perspectives and considering alternative viewpoints expands your understanding. Feedback can reveal blind spots and provide insights you might miss alone. Combined with personal reflection, external input becomes a powerful catalyst for learning and adjustment. The cycle of reflect, learn, adjust, when applied consistently, turns life into a laboratory for growth. Every challenge, mistake, and opportunity becomes data to inform your next move. You stop being reactive because each experience is processed through the lens of insight. You stop fearing failure because each failure becomes a source of wisdom. You stop wandering aimlessly because reflection illuminates the path. Learning provides the map, and adjustment sets the course. Ultimately, this practice cultivates mastery over life itself. It creates a rhythm of conscious evolution where experiences no longer control you, but teach you. Reflection sharpens perception, learning builds understanding, and adjustment ensures alignment with your goals, values, and purpose. By committing to this cycle, you develop the resilience to navigate uncertainty, the clarity to act decisively, and the wisdom to grow continuously. Reflection, learning, and adjustment transform challenges into opportunities, mistakes into guidance, and experiences into stepping stones. When you embrace this practice fully, life becomes an intentional journey rather than a series of random events. The storms you face no longer overwhelm because you know how to pause, analyze, and move forward. The wisdom you gain with each cycle becomes your most reliable tool, equipping you to face any situation with calm, clarity, and purpose. By integrating reflection, learning, and adjustment into daily life, you create a foundation for enduring growth. Each day becomes an opportunity to refine your understanding, deepen your awareness, and improve your responses. Over time, this practice cultivates a life of intentional progress, resilience, and meaningful achievement. It is through this continuous cycle that mastery of self and ultimately mastery of life becomes possible. Number 10. Create lasting peace. Peace is not something that appears by chance, nor is it a destination reached through avoidance or denial. Lasting peace is cultivated, built moment by moment, choice by choice, inside the mind and heart. It begins with the recognition that life will always bring challenges, uncertainties, and disruptions. Peace does not mean the absence of storms. It means remaining grounded and centered even when the winds blow fiercely. It is the calm within the chaos, the unwavering stillness that anchors you when external circumstances are unpredictable. Creating lasting peace starts with self-awareness. You must know the inner landscape of your mind, the currents of thought, the patterns of reaction, and the sources of agitation. Most unrest arises not from the world itself, but from how you interpret and respond to it. When the mind identifies threat or discomfort, it reacts automatically, generating tension, anxiety, or fear. Awareness allows you to notice these reactions before they take control. Observing yourself without judgment is the first step toward establishing enduring calm. Peace grows when you accept reality as it is, without clinging to what should be. Resistance magnifies suffering. The mind resists pain, loss, uncertainty, and imperfection, creating inner conflict that spreads through every aspect of life. Acceptance is not resignation, it is clarity. It is acknowledging the facts of the present moment and choosing to work with them rather than against them. In acceptance, you find freedom. You stop wasting energy on what cannot be changed and redirect it toward constructive thought and action. Inner dialogue plays a central role in lasting peace. The stories you tell yourself can either nurture tranquility or fuel turmoil. Thoughts steeped in blame, worry, or regret pull you away from serenity, while thoughts rooted in understanding, patience, and compassion build resilience. Monitoring your internal conversation and gently steering it toward truth and calmness is essential. Peace is not passive. It is the result of disciplined mental attention, the deliberate choice to cultivate clarity over confusion. Gratitude strengthens peace. Focusing on what is present, what is working, and what is supportive creates a foundation of stability. When the mind dwells solely on lack, disappointment, or frustration, anxiety grows. But when awareness shifts to appreciation, even in small moments, tension diminishes. Gratitude anchors consciousness in what is solid and real, rather than fleeting and imagined. This practice does not erase challenges, but gives you a vantage point from which to meet them without losing composure. Calmness of body and breath directly affects peace of mind. Physical tension and shallow breathing feed mental agitation, while deep, intentional breathing and relaxed posture signal safety and stability to the nervous system. Simple practices like mindful breathing, gentle stretching, or a brief pause during the day reconnect body and mind. These acts create a physiological foundation for lasting peace, reminding you that stillness is not only a mental state, but a full-body experience. Boundaries are essential for maintaining peace. External pressures, toxic relationships, and unnecessary obligations can disrupt tranquility. Lasting peace requires discernment, knowing when to say no, when to protect your energy, and when to remove yourself from situations that erode calm. Boundaries are not selfishness, they are acts of self-preservation and clarity. By defining what you allow into your mental and emotional space, you create a sanctuary where peace can grow steadily. Forgiveness is another cornerstone of enduring peace. Holding on to resentment, anger, or grudges chains the mind to past suffering. True peace emerges when the grip of bitterness loosens. Forgiveness does not mean condoning wrongdoing. It means releasing the internal hold it has over you. By letting go of resentment, you reclaim energy and cultivate spaciousness within yourself. The mind freed from the weight of past grievance is fertile ground for calmness, insight, and compassion. Discipline fosters continuity in peace. Peace is not a fleeting emotion. It is a practice, daily routines that incorporate mindfulness, reflection, gratitude, and intention gradually reshape the mind. When you consistently return to calmness, even amidst small stresses, it becomes habitual. Lasting peace is built through repeated commitment, the quiet dedication to align thoughts, words, and actions with balance rather than chaos. The more often you choose calmness intentionally, the more it becomes a default state rather than a fleeting experience. Perspective is critical in cultivating deep peace. Life is full of challenges, yet few situations are as catastrophic as the mind interprets them to be. Expanding your awareness to consider broader contexts, long-term outcomes, or alternative beats reduces the power of temporary disturbances. Perspective acts as a buffer, softening the impact of external stresses and preventing the mind from being hijacked by minor crises. Through perspective, challenges transform from threats to opportunities for growth, and peace remains intact. Connection with the present moment strengthens lasting peace. The mind's unrest often arises from dwelling on the past or fearing the future. Anchoring attention in the present allows clarity and calmness to flourish. Mindfulness practices, such as noticing your surroundings, focusing on breathing, or attending fully to a single task, create direct experience of now. The present is the only space where peace exists. Tangibly, past and future exist as concepts, but the present is where life unfolds. Compassion amplifies peace. Being gentle with yourself and others reduces internal resistance and tension. Harsh self-criticism, judgment, and compassion create turbulence in the mind. When you treat yourself with understanding and extend that to others, conflict softens. Compassion does not mean tolerating harm or avoiding responsibility. It means engaging with life in a way that honors human imperfection while maintaining integrity. This attitude allows harmony to flourish even amidst difficulty. Detachment from unnecessary attachment deepens peace. Many disturbances stem from clinging to possessions, outcomes, or expectations. Attachment creates vulnerability to loss and disappointment. By practicing detachment, you maintain engagement with life while preserving inner stability. Detachment is not indifference. It is freedom from over-identification with external circumstances. Through it, you create a stable center from which all actions and reactions arise calmly. Simplicity in daily life nurtures peace. When routines, possessions, and mental commitments are excessive, the mind becomes overstimulated and restless. Simplifying priorities, focusing on essentials, and clearing clutter, physical and mental, provides breathing room for serenity. Simplicity reduces internal conflict and allows attention to remain focused on meaningful experiences. Peace thrives in clarity and order, not in constant complication or distraction. Consistency of practice builds resilience. Lasting peace is not achieved in a single moment of insight. It is the accumulation of repeated mindful choices over time. Each act of patience, each intentional pause, each decision made from calmness strengthens the capacity for serenity. Challenges will arise, but a mind trained in consistent, peaceful practices navigates difficulty with grace. Like a river carving a valley slowly over time, persistent attention to peace reshapes the inner landscape. Acceptance of impermanence stabilizes peace. Life is ever-changing, and attachment to permanence creates suffering. Recognizing that circumstances, emotions, and experiences are transient allows the mind to remain steady amidst flux. Peace is not static, it is dynamic, a balanced response to change rather than a denial of it. Understanding impermanence fosters flexibility, reducing resistance and increasing adaptability. Creating lasting peace requires integrating these practices into a cohesive daily life. Awareness, acceptance, mindfulness, compassion, detachment, discipline, and simplicity work together to reinforce one another. The more consistently you practice them, the more your mind becomes a sanctuary of calm, regardless of external circumstances. Peace becomes not an occasional state, but a continuous way of being. When challenges arise, lasting peace allows you to respond rather than react. It creates clarity in decision-making, steadiness in action, and freedom from internal turmoil. It is not dependent on circumstances, It is cultivated within. A mind trained to sustain peace observes events, learns from them, and maintains equilibrium. Through these practices, life transforms from a battlefield into a field of possibility, where choices are made with clarity, energy is preserved, and presence becomes your most powerful resource. True lasting peace is the product of intentional cultivation. It is a deliberate practice, a lifelong journey, and a conscious commitment to live in alignment with awareness, acceptance, and wisdom. Each day offers opportunities to nurture calmness, integrate lessons, and expand serenity into every area of life. As these practices deepen, peace becomes a defining quality of your being, radiating outward to influence not only yourself, but also the world around you. Through dedicated practice, the mind becomes like a still lake, reflecting reality clearly without distortion. Life's storms may ripple its surface, but the depth remains undisturbed. Lasting peace is not an absence of life's challenges. It is the capacity to meet them from a foundation of unwavering inner calm. When cultivated fully, it becomes your sanctuary, your strength, and your guiding force in every experience.